starting from this session, we will begin to learn Module 4. In Module 4, we will talk about company fundamentals. First, let's have some idea about company fundamentals. Previously, we have learned a lot of analytical measurements and measures, including we have comparative measure and we have trend analysis. And we have learned a lot of analytical measures about stock price, stock and bond price. We learn their returns, we learn their risks, and we evaluate their trends. Either we have positive or upward trend, or we have negative or downward trend. Yes, all these are security analysis. And these kinds of security analysis, we call them technical analysis. Starting from today, we will learn another type of security analysis, which is called fundamental analysis. In fundamental analysis, we look into the company. And we will evaluate their internal information, company internal information. While technical analysis look the outside information of a company, primarily from market perspective. And company fundamental analysis, we look into a company from company itself. We will learn a lot of useful measures here. Let's back to the slides. The questions in this module is, before we decide to invest a company stock, we suggest we know something fundamental about the company itself. The problem is what to know and how to know. We will have many topics in company fundamental analysis. At first, we will look at the portrait of a company. That means the company profile, or the very basic information about a company, such as its address, its main business, its management, and some other things. And then we will look at some of the asset liability analysis of a company. We will analyze its profitability and prospect. After that, we will look at a company from a market standpoint, but this time we still focus the company fundamental information itself. Primarily, we will analyze some of the market ratios. These market ratios are often referred in financial news. If we understand the real meaning of these ratios, I believe it will be very helpful in our investment activities. About these two parts, we don't have much time on that, but I'll send the slides to you as well. If you are interested, you can learn that yourself, and if you have any questions, you can still ask me. Of course, we will skip some of the topics, but we will still focus on the very interesting part. First, topic 1 in Module 4, we have the company basic info about the company's profile. And then we will look into the company's profile about its senior management. And we will skip these two parts because we will have them in later topics. And then we'll look into company dividends as well as company stock splits, because usually these kind of events usually cause lots of market reflections. So even for an entry-level investor, you have to know this. Now, let's go to topic 1, company profile, about company basic information. First, let's look at what are these company basic informations. It means something very basic about the company, about the stock. If you even do not know these informations and decide to invest in the company, it's very funny, right? First, let's use the famous Apple stock to be our topic case. Well, you probably know the name of this guy, Steve Jobs, right? Well, these are Apple's famous products: iPhone, iPad, MacBook. So probably some of you are now using MacBook, right? This is our topic case. In this topic case, we will use Apple stock as an example to know its basic information. It's part of company profile study. Company profile study. First, we know that in Western world, in order to classify a company, we usually use two dimensions. First dimension, we use sector. And then we use industry. Sector is a big part, while industry is another more detailed classifications under sector. So sector is a bigger category, while industry is a smaller category under sector. Let's look at the sector and industry of Apple. We have them here. From sector perspective, Apple belongs to technology. It's a very big category. While about its industry, it is consumer electronics. Consumer electronics is a subcategory under the big category technology. It's big and this is small. Next time, when you read financial news, you read sector and industry, you know what they refer to. And then its address. Its address is in the United States, in California, a city called Cupertino. This is its zip code and its office phone. This is its websites. Well, this is pretty interesting. It's full-time employees. It's more than 100,000, but it is at 2021, June the 18th. Its stock is traded in US dollar, and the exchange is Nasdaq GS. We know that Nasdaq is a famous capital market, but in Nasdaq, there are a couple of different levels. First level is called the Global Select. It's the highest level of capital market in Nasdaq. Usually here we have the best companies like Apple, like Microsoft, Qualcomm, and then we still have another two levels. Okay? Another two levels, usually they are lower levels of capital market, and the companies here are not as good as the ones in the first level. In order to have more information about the second level and the third level, you can quickly do a search either in Baidu or Google. Okay? So whenever you hear a company is listed in Nasdaq, you can ask a further question. So which mark of capital market of Nasdaq is this stock listed in? This is a very critical question. As long as you can ask such kind of questions, it means you have learned something about capital market and security analysis, right? Okay, this is the case script in order to get these informations. Of course, we can change these informations to other company, but I tell you first, not every company provides detailed information about their profiles, because this is not mandatory in some of the stock markets. Of course, probably you may be interested in Microsoft, right? Or even in Google. We will do exercise cases later. Yeah, we will do this exercise later. Next information probably you are very interested in is the company's senior management. The big guys in the companies. We expect to know who are they. Sometimes we are also interested in, well, how much money do they earn in a year, okay? And their jobs, their roles in the company. Yeah. Of course, some of the guys are very famous. This is our topic question. How to know something about the company's senior management guys. Even sometimes we are interested, are they male or female? Okay. But however, usually we can check that by their first name, right? Now, let's continue to look at Apple. Some of the guys in Apple is pretty famous, right? Yeah, this is the second part. We know something about company profile, corporate management. For Apple, these are the top management in Apple. The first guy, Mr. Timothy D. Cook. We know it is called Cook. It's very famous, right? And his role is CEO and director. He's now 60 years old. However, it is 2021, June 18th. He's born in 1961. Well, his compensations, 2020 is $14 million total compensation, including his salary, his bonus, and welfare. Of course, this number is before tax. Who is the second guy in Apple? This guy is called Luca Maestri. His role is CFO. Now, 57 years old. Of course, 2021, born 1964. His total compensation at 2020 is 4.5 million. Well, it's about 1/3 of that of Cook, right? The third guy is called Jeffrey Williams. His role is Chief Operating Officer. We call this COO, right? We call Cook CEO. We call Luca CFO. Probably, I believe some of you may become either CFO or CEO or COO someday in the future, probably after 10 or 20 years. His role is COO and now 57 years old. His total compensation is $4.5 million at 2020. The first three guys are male. Now we have two females. First one, Mrs. Catherine Adams. What is her role? Her role is General Counsel. General Counsel, it means lawyer. She's a lawyer, yeah? 57 years old. Her compensation is $4.5 million. We find that these guys, total compensation roughly the same, right? $4.6 million. And then the fifth guy, Mrs. Deidre O'Brien. What is her role? Her role is VP of People. It means HRD. HRD. She's now 54 years old, born in 1967. Okay. The compensation is 4.6 million as well. Yeah. So by this simple description, we can quickly know the senior management of Apple in a very short time, right? Now, let's do some of the exercise together. So in order to get these informations, we will use this Python command. This is a new Python command. It's also very powerful. The first parameter here is the start code. And its second parameter is option. It's what kind of aspect you want to know about this company. If we don't have this option here, it means basic. Then if we have an officer here, it will display the senior management. Now, let's do exercise together. We have known something about Apple. Now, let's try to know something about Microsoft. For example, we have for equals to get log profile. We have here Microsoft. If they do not have the options, it will display the basic information. Let's look at this first. Okay, this is about Microsoft. Let's look at Microsoft. First of all, let's have an idea about Microsoft's sector and industry. The sector, Microsoft belongs to technology sector. It's the same with that of Apple, because technology is a very, very big category. And then for industry, Microsoft belongs to software infrastructure. Software infrastructure. Infrastructure means the lower level but critically important software, such as operating systems and fundamental office tools. For Microsoft, its famous software including Microsoft, Windows 10, and Windows 11, as well as Microsoft Office, right? We have Microsoft Word, we have Microsoft Excel, we have Microsoft PowerPoint. Now, some of you may have been using another one called OneNote, right? Also, another famous one is called Microsoft Edge. Okay, I'm using Microsoft Edge to share my slides with you. So these are about Microsoft. These are very critical, important software. So that's why we call them software infrastructure. And this is the address of Microsoft. It's in the United States of America. WA means Washington State. But please be aware, Washington State is different from Washington, D.C., right? Well, Washington State, say, for example, this is United States of America. Washington, D.C. is about here. It's called Washington, D.C. Washington State is about here. It's in the north of California. Well, about full-time employees is about 181,000. And its exchange is also the same as that of Apple. It's NASDAQ GS. Here, GS means Global Select. Global Select is the highest level of capital market in NASDAQ. Its stock is traded in USD as well. Probably you expect to know the most recent information about Apple, right? We can have a quick update about Apple. We can have a quick update about Apple. Now, let's look at Apple. We find an interesting phenomenon that on 2022, July 25th, Apple's full-time employees is 154,000. The number of employees increased a lot compared to 1 year ago. How much did they have 1 year ago? Let's back to the slides. We can check that. Okay. About 1 year ago, Apple's full-time employees is just over 100,000 employees, right? And after 1 year, it has increased more than 50,000. So if you expect to look for a job after graduation, probably Apple is one of your choice because it is recruiting lots of people. It has recruited more than 50,000 people just in the past year. It's great. It's a very good news for us, right? Of course, if you expect to look for a job, Apple. Okay, let's look at some of the other information about that. So what about the most recent information about Apple? Let's do another update. Well, okay. officers. Now, by this way, we can know the most recent information about Apple. Oh, we have some problems here, right? The data source, we have some problems here. Sometimes we have this problem. Okay, continue to have problems. Probably we need to do that later. Sometimes the data source have problems in this way. Well, let's check Microsoft. What about Microsoft? Here we have Microsoft. Here in SAP. Okay, let's look at Microsoft. Okay, now for Microsoft, we know some of the very interesting informations. First, Microsoft that we have here. This is Microsoft. Its first guy is called Satya Nadella. Okay, he's an Indian guy. Mr. Nadella graduated in India Institute of Technology. So he spent his childhood time, his primary school time, his secondary school time, high school time, and bachelor school time, all in India. And after he got his bachelor degree, he went to US for a master degree. And after that, he joined Microsoft. He has been working in Microsoft for more than 20 years. And eventually, an Indian-born, Indian-educated guy became the CEO of Microsoft, the most famous company in the world. His role in Microsoft is the chairman of the board of directors and also the CEO. He's now 55 years old and born in 1967. His total compensation last year is $16 million. The second guy, called Bradford Smith. What is his role in Microsoft? He's the president and vice chairman. 63 years old. From this, we don't know his real position in Microsoft. And the third is a lady, Mrs. Amy Hood. Executive Vice President. VP means Vice President and CFO. Only 50 years old. Born in 1972. The total compensation is $5.6 million. CFO. Okay. It's a pretty interesting position. If some of you is now learning financial management or accounting, you are actually eligible for a CFO in the future. Of course, we can have our career expectations on that. Of course, in order to become CFO, you have to learn lots of things, right? And next is called Mr. Christopher David Young. His role is Executive VP and Business Development. Okay. From business development, what do you know about that? It's sales. It's sales. Business development. It's sales, actually. Usually it's another name for sales. Also responsible for strategy and ventures. Only 50 years old. Right? His total compensation is $5.9 million. And then next is a lady as well, Mrs. Alice Jola. Her role is Corporate VP and Chief Accounting Officer. Wow. Another way related to accounting is called CAO, CFO. So probably I can ask you a question. What are the differences between CFO and CAO? Think about that. Next is called Mr. Christopher Capocella. His role is Executive VP in Marketing and Consumer Business and Chief Marketing Officer. This guy is responsible for marketing. Well, I can ask you another question. What are the differences of a sales job and a marketing job? The last one, a lady as well, Mrs. Catherine Hogan. Her role is Executive VP and Chief HR Officer, 56 years old. Okay, her role is pretty clear. Is HRD, right? HRD, the top HR guy. Now, let's look at some interesting questions. So, what are the differences between CFO, Chief Financial Officer, and Chief Accounting Officer? Okay. CFO usually is the top guy of in a company. in terms of financials and accounting. Right? We know the major job of CFO are two types. First one is called financing. Another one is called budgeting. So actually budgeting, we have two parts. The first part is called financing and the second part is called spending. You know, the job of financing means get money into the company. Get money into the company. But not from sales or selling something. And spending means how to spend money of a company into strategic areas. Not ordinary spending, but into strategic areas. Well, CEO's job is usually internal. Internal accounting, auditing, something. Yeah. So this is CEO's jobs. So sometimes we say it's mainly about bookkeeping, and financial statements. These are about the jobs. And the second question, sales and marketing. You know the difference? Okay. Sales is selling something, selling companies' products and services, right? While marketing is usually some like advertisement. So sales get money into the company. While marketing spend money. So these two kinds of jobs are very different from each other, right? And we have Microsoft. Of course, we can have another one, such as, for example, we don't have data for every company, but we do have data for some of the very famous companies, such as next one, probably we have Google, right? We have Google. Here we have Google. First, let's check for Google. Yeah. So Google is another one of the greatest company in the world. For Google, its sector belongs to communication services. Google, its industry is internet, content, and information. So for this way, we can say that Baidu should be the same type, right? Baidu should be the same type. Its stock is traded in US dollar. Its management, let's look at its management. It's pretty interesting about its management. Oh, a lot. A lot of management here. Now, the first guy in Google is called Sundar Pichai. He's an Indian guy as well. And his career path is pretty similar with that of Microsoft CEO Nadella. He spent his childhood, his primary school, secondary school, high school, and bachelor education in India. If my memory is not wrong, also IIT, Indian Institute of Technology, very famous one. And then later, after graduation, he went to US for a master degree and then joined some of the companies. Eventually, he joined Google and become CEO. He's now just 49 years old and born in 1973. His total compensation is not that high, it's $6.3 million in 2021. Second guy, Mr. Lawrence Edward Page, is one of the founders in Google, right? Co-founder and director, 49 years old. It's very young, right? Total compensation is just $1. Pretty interesting, right? Just $1. Why? Because Mr. Page is not interested in earning salaries. He's interested in getting the company's stock price higher because he's He holds a lot of companies' stocks. He's one of the founders in Google. And then Mr. Sergey Brin is a Russian guy, right? The co-founder as well. 48 years old. His total compensation is $1 as well. $1 as well. He's one of the founders as well. Actually, these two guys are all immigrants from Russia. Then, Mrs. Ruth Horrit. Her role is CFO. 64 years old. Wow, a little bit old, right? Then, Mr. J. Kent Walker. His role is Global Affairs, a Chief Legal Officer. Well, he's a lawyer, right? Lawyer. Next is Dr. Prahaka Rakhavan, another Indian guy. His role is Senior Vice President of Knowledge and Information. 61 years old. Then Mr. Philip Schindler. His role is Chief Business Officer. And then Mrs. Amy Turner, O'Toole. Okay, this guy is from Irish. It's Irish. Her husband is an Irish guy. From this name, we can tell. Her role is Chief Accounting Officer. Then Mrs. Fiona Claire Ciccone. Well, Chief People Officer. That means he's an HRD, right? Top HR guy. So this is for Google. This is pretty interesting, right? So from this way, you can know a lot of companies in a very quick way. Well, unfortunately, not every company's information available. Let's look at the basic information about Google. Okay. About Google, we know that its staff employees 163,000. Also listed in Nasdaq GS. Okay, now we have some ideas on how to know company's basic information as well as senior management. So by this way, what can we know? We will know a company's basic information, like its address, its stock exchange, its number of employees, as well as its business categories, including sector and industry. Then we know something about its senior management. All these top guys, such as who is the CEO, and who is the CFO, and who is the HRD, and some of the other roles in the company. Okay, let's have a 10 minutes break first.